Okay, I'll do it. Hi, you're listening to an open dialogue. I'm Violet Howe,
And I'm Tawdra Kandle.
and I am so excited to say that it is Oscar season. But does anybody really care this year? Do you care that it's Oscar season? No.
I honestly, no. I didn't even know. I had no idea.
See, I think you're in the majority. Like,
Yeah.
as you know, I'm diehard Oscar fan, diehard movie fan. I usually go to the Best Picture showcase with friends every year. The theater was not hosting it this year, so I hosted it at my house with my little group of vaccinated friends. It's the first party I've thrown in over a year. So you should have seen the list of themed concessions that I had for 4 people. Like, it was insane. But um, yeah, I just think that this year, with everything that's happened with the pandemic, I just think that it's not on like some people it's never on their radar, let's be
Right.
honest, but I think even for some people who love movies, it's movies are just not on the radar. I have had so many people say to me, "How are they gonna do the Oscars when there's been no movies released?"
Yeah.
And so people don't even realize that movies have been released like this whole time. And I think that it's just not a priority right now. There's so much else going on that is just not a
Yeah.
priority for people.
I don't think it's yeah, I don't think it's been a priority for me for a long time. I can't remember really a time, and I'm sure if I sat down and went through year by year, maybe I would, but when I would say, "Oh, this should have been Best Picture," I get it. Most of the time, I tend to like movies that are not necessarily, blockbuster
Well, and I don't
Oscar
think the Academy
nominees.
chooses blockbuster. I mean, I think that's actually a criticism that a lot of people have about the Oscars is that the Academy chooses these like, bizarre films that a lot of years people haven't heard of the Best Picture
Right.
nominees. And I think that's one of the image problems that the Academy has is that they pick these like out of the way films. But I
But
don't
I
know.
would
I
say that over the past 10 years, I probably have not seen how many are nominated each year for Best Picture? Like 5, 6
No, it
series?
ranges anywhere from 8 to 10 usually.
Okay, 8 to 10. So let's say 10 years. So that's between 80 and 100 films, and I've probably seen 3 out of those 80 to 100 films.
And I've
I
probably
just
seen 90.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just not, I like what I like, and I also think this year, in addition to the pandemic, I don't know that it's entirely I'm sure it's partly that, but I also think that in the last 5 years, maybe a little bit more or less than that, we have so many other venues for entertainment. So
Right.
with me, I am much more likely to see something that is released directly to Netflix or to HBO Max or to Hulu or to Amazon Prime than I am to see something in the movie theater. I
And
mean,
I
I
think
can count
especially
on
in
one
this
hand.
past year with the pandemic, I really think streaming and I mean,
Yeah,
streaming and binge watching were popular before that, but I really
yeah,
think that everyone spent this past year streaming and binge watching. And so many of the movies that are nominated this year are actually from streaming networks.
right.
Like,
Which is
Hulu is
great. I
represented,
love that.
Amazon is represented, Netflix is represented. So I really think that you're starting to see them branch out from
Mhm.
just the big powerhouse studios into these streaming networks. Each year you're seeing more and more nominations for the streaming networks. So I don't know, like it'll be interesting to see. I think theaters have been obviously shuttered, through the pandemic and even since they opened, I think they've really struggled to try to get people back in the theaters, which is, kind of indoor setting with a group of strangers all breathing and coughing and eating together is really not. I mean, I'm a
Hey,
diehard theater
drive-ins.
person, and I
Drive-ins are
have
making a comeback.
yes, they are. I've kept all of my, like, movie memberships to try to support the theater industry, but I haven't there's only one time I've been back in a theater, and that was because a friend of ours was nominated for a film award, and I was almost hyperventilating because they had assured us that when we went in, um, there would be like, social distancing or whatever. And no, there were people coughing right behind me and people coughing right in front of me. And like, it was not pleasant. But
Craziness.
I don't know. It will be interesting to see in all areas of life. It'll be interesting to see what normal is coming out of this pandemic. God
Yeah.
willing that we come out of this pandemic. But I really think it'll be interesting to see what happens with not only the theater industry, but with movies in general. I mean, you've even got some of the big studios that release straight to streaming. Disney
Yeah,
Plus got a lot of straight releases. So
definitely.
it'll be very interesting to see what happens with movies in the future. I don't
Yeah.
think we'll stop telling movies. I don't think we'll stop having movies. I think
No,
that
I
art is
agree.
a very important escape, and art is a very important, aspect of our lives and something that we need as humans. So I don't think we'll stop having movies. It's just the
No.
format in which they're produced and shown may change.
And I think that we will not have, I remember when Amazon Prime and Netflix and whatever, and everybody predicted the death of the movie theater experience,
Right.
and that hasn't happened. And it was interesting. David, my son, and I were talking about. We watched the 4 hour director's cut of Justice League, 2 or 3 weeks ago, something like that. And I'm not a DC girl, but I loved it. I was like, wow, this was really good. So he tells me that they are considering releasing a 6 hour director's cut of Endgame from Marvel.
Oh, nice.
And he said, if they show that in the theaters, I'm going to be there because I want that experience. Like, I want
See,
to be with other
yes.
people. And we were talking about having seen Endgame and how, we all gasped at the same time. We all cried at the same time. We all laughed at the same time. And there is something to be said for that.
I
You know,
love being able to hit pause and get up and go to the
yeah,
restroom or get up and fix a snack or,
right.
whatever. But I just love the theater experience. I
Yeah.
love sitting there, exactly what you said. There's a collective group of people who are experiencing something together, and you laugh together, and you gasp together, and you hope together, and you cry together. And I love that. I love that collective energy. I've always been one who tries to go on opening nights for that very
Hmm.
reason, because there's so much energy in an opening night film. And it's funny because since we've been doing this Oscar Best Picture showcase, I think it's been like 6 years or 7 years now that we've been doing it every year. And we try to gamble, and any films that are getting Oscar buzz, we try not to go to the theater. Why are you laughing?
I'm sorry. I have a cat who is coming around here, and I'm like watching her, and I'm waiting for her to knock off my computer. She's like jungle catting around it.
Angling.
I'm sorry. I'm trying, but I was getting ready to catch the computer. This is live. This is live television, folks. Yes, no,
Exactly.
I know you and I knew this about you, that you make a concerted effort not to see any film that looks like it might go into that
Right. Which
until,
kills me
yeah,
sometimes when like
right,
everybody's
sure,
buzzing about it and everybody's talking
right,
about it, and I can't go and see it because I really think it's going to get an Oscar. But I
yeah,
will say the showcases, like they've sold out in years past. Obviously, we're not having it this year, but to be in a theater with people that are there, for anybody who doesn't know, the Best Picture Showcase is usually the 2 Saturdays prior to the Oscar awards ceremony, and they run all of the Best Picture nominees back to back. So it's usually 4 to 5 films each day. When you go into a theater with a group of people who are ready to sit there for 10 to 12 hours and watch 4 to 5 films back to back, you're passionate about films and you're sharing this collective energy, and between films everybody talks, and like, so
right,
I don't know. I don't think I'm ready to give up the theater experience. In
right.
fact, my husband and I were talking about, because we've had our first shots. I'm actually getting my second shot today, and he gets his second shot on Monday. And we've talked about, like, when we're vaccinated, what is it that you want to do first? And I said, first, I want to hug. I want to hug loved ones and hug friends. But my second thing was theater. I want to go to the movies. Like, I really
Yeah.
miss that experience.
Yeah, yeah. And I
So
will say that in the past few years, I think I have enjoyed. We have the Enzian not too far from us,
yes, I love the
and so
Enzian.
right, and so that's where I go because I have enjoyed more of the off the beaten path films that
Like
are
indie
not even
films.
on. Yeah, but that are not. I've seen a lot of films there that are not anywhere near the Best Picture. The buzz. They are mostly independent. We saw Jackie there a few years ago. That was excellent. We saw something about France. I can't remember what it was. It was a great film. I enjoyed it.
And just so
And
people
that's a
know that
good
are listening, the
experience.
Enzian is like
Yeah,
a small independent theater. They have tables and chairs, and they serve
right.
yummy food and drinks, and they have film
Well, they serve
festivals, and
food. They
they
serve
serve
food.
drinks.
They do serve drinks too, but I'm not sure that I would call it yummy food. It's your basic,
Oh, I thought you were saying that
basic
they didn't
fare.
serve drinks.
No, they do
You're
serve
going to
drinks,
the theater. They serve more than
right,
popcorn and hot dogs.
right, well,
Um,
yeah, that's true.
and
I
they
mean,
do
yeah,
show a lot of like art house films
they
or
do,
indie films and,
yeah, and they have a
limited runs.
great, bar outside too, and
Mhm.
they do also show films outside
And they
on
have
a, like
drinks.
they do.
Um, one of the things that I thought about with with the Oscars this year, because all of the award shows, and I'm also an award show junkie, and there's people who
Mm.
don't care, and that's fine. That's why God made green and red apples because we don't all like the same things. But I think it would be really sad if you were a director or a writer or a producer or a actor or a stuntman or a makeup person, whatever, and you've poured your life into this career and you finally are in a film and it's going to premiere and no one can go to the theater to see it.
Yeah,
No one is hearing about it because it's not in the theater. There's no red carpet premiere. There's no like, seeing all the buzz. I just think that would be really, and again, everything put in perspective with the pandemic, people are dying and losing loved ones. Obviously, that's the most important thing. But when we look at like someone's career and kind of like what you would consider the pinnacle of their career,
mm,
if you get nominated for an Oscar and instead of the red carpet and the Vanity Fair party, you're sitting at home on your couch with some chips and a computer on Zoom, it's just a little bit sad that they don't
yeah,
get to have that full experience,
yeah, and I've
I
seen
think.
some people, I don't know what, maybe it's for the SAG Awards
SAG
or
Awards, Golden
something,
Globes, Critics' Choice, a lot of those have already happened this
right,
season.
and I've seen people dress up for them
Mhm.
and, at home, which to me, I think, yeah, that would not be my choice.
It would
And
totally be
but
my choice.
there have been, times we watched SNL a few weeks ago, and I can't remember who the host was, but he had been nominated for something and won, and, when they went to
Was
thank
it
him,
Dan
his
Levy?
no, it was not. This was just maybe not this past week, but the week before. And he, or maybe it was this. No, it was the week before. He he was on mute. They couldn't get his sound to come on when he won. So he showed the footage of it. He said, "Yeah, this was me winning, and this is me not saying a word
See,
because
and
they."
that's like
Yeah,
as someone who and part of this plays into the fact that like since I was literally like 3 or 4 years old, I've wanted to be an actress. That was what I always told people I was going to be. They have home movies of me accepting my awards at a very young age. So as someone who has always like dreamed of that acceptance speech, that would really suck that you finally got nominated and you finally got awarded
mhm.
and the acceptance speech is my favorite part of the show, and your acceptance speech is muted. Like that just would be like, really? Seriously? Thanks, universe. Kaylee Cuoco from Big Bang Theory,
Right,
she has had some really cute videos on her Instagram live because she was nominated for the flight attendant
right.
and like she hasn't won, and so she comes home in the dress. Like one of them, she was like sitting in the kitchen floor in the big poofy dress eating pizza and drinking champagne and having cookies, like somebody had made special cookies for her. And another one, I think it was Screen Actors Guild Awards, she came home in the evening gown and she goes in her bedroom and like throws back the covers, gets in bed in the evening gown and starts watching oh, Dan Levy's show, Schitt's Creek.
Oh,
So yeah, so yeah, it was pretty funny, like, the reactions. And like Nicole Kidman has had some gorgeous like hair and makeup and dress sessions. They've done photography sessions at her ranch. And some of them have been absolutely gorgeous. I think some of the pictures have actually been prettier than they would have been on the red carpet because they've been at like, gardens or pools or home or whatever. But I do think as an actress, I think it would be sad for such an important moment in that particular industry to just be less than what it's supposed to be because some of those people may never get nominated again, you
true.
know?
Very
So
true. Yeah.
yeah, who was it? Rosie Perez, I think, was saying that she got nominated like 30 years ago for something and she's never even
Wow.
been asked back.
Yeah.
She's never been invited to come back as a presenter or anything. So that was like her one and
What was
done.
she
I was like,
nominated for? I remember
I
that,
don't
but what
know.
was it? Isn't that terrible?
I don't know. I'll
What
look
did
her up. It may not have been Rosie Perez. I'm almost positive that it was.
she was nominated. I remember that. I just don't remember what it was for.
I
It was
don't
30
either.
years ago. But, it
We'll
was,
look her
yeah.
up. Somebody, I saw a meme this week that said, us talking about the 80s now
I
is like
know.
people
Yes.
in the 80s talking about the 40s.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
That is insane.
Isn't that crazy?
That's
Well,
really insane.
you know, when you have children and you start putting these things in perspective, you know, I remember one time one of my kids said, "Well, you were only born like 20 years after World War II," and I was like, "What the?" Yeah, that's pretty much right. My husband definitely was 20
Oh
years for me.
my
It was 22, but
gosh.
yeah, I mean 20 years.
When did
And you
the war ended in 45?
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, I was born 23. I mean, because you're so much older than me,
yeah, so
remember?
much older than you. Yeah,
But
so I was
yeah,
22. Yeah,
that's insane.
yeah. It's just how, I
That's
mean, things had
insane.
changed so radically from 1945 to 1965 or 67 or 68. So yeah, but, and I don't think like, I don't feel like things have changed as radically between now and the 80s as they did between the 40s and the 80s.
With everything, with
Yeah,
technology, with society, with, I mean, obviously we
norms.
can
Yeah,
definitely see changes, but
right.
such a
Definitely.
drastic change from
Yeah.
like the 40s seems like a completely different era
Oh, yes, without
entirely.
a doubt. And it was.
Rosie Perez was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for her performance in Fearless in
Ah,
1993.
Fearless. I don't remember that. Who else was in
I
that? I
don't
wonder.
either. Like, I feel kind of sad that she got nominated. It was Jeff Bridges, Isabella Rossellini, John Turturro.
Oh, yes, I do remember that one now.
What was it
Okay.
about? Should I go check it out?
You might guess.
Um, I don't know.
I like have a vague memory of it. I can't
Somebody
say exactly.
survives an airline crash.
Mm,
I don't know. All right.
mm, hmm.
All right. So yeah, I think that's
So
I think
when
that's
are the Academy
interesting.
Awards?
Next Sunday night, the
Oh, okay.
25th.
Okay.
The
Hmm.
25th. So we did 4 films last week. Last week we saw The Father with Anthony Hopkins and Olivia Colman. We saw Mank with Gary Oldman and Amanda Seyfried. We saw Judas and the Black Messiah with Daniel Kaluuya
Oh,
and Lakeith
that one I do know because
Stanfield.
that was released directly to HBO Max. So that one I am
And
familiar
we
with.
saw Promising Young Woman with Carey Mulligan. And
Oh, now
if you would like my
yeah, she just hosted SNL this past week. So now I
Yes,
know because
she
everybody
did
said to
because
me,
her
"Who
husband,
is she?" Yes,
Marcus Mumford, yeah,
right,
he like
right,
came out,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Um, so if you want my Oscar review, my Siskel and Ebert Violet Howe review, I would say that The Father with Anthony Hopkins, definite 2 thumbs up.
Right,
Um, Olivia Colman, I love.
I
She's
do too.
absolutely wonderful in everything that I see her in, but she was great. And Anthony Hopkins, of course, Sir
Of
Anthony
course,
brought it.
right.
Um, it was the movie deals with an older gentleman who is facing dementia and mental decline, which is a very scary, uncomfortable topic to watch. But I will say the way that they filmed this and the way they handled it, it is definitely worth the watch.
Mm.
It was very interesting. I think we spent the first hour of the movie collectively just looking at each other going, "What the hell? What the hell? What the hell?" So, it's very good. I would definitely recommend it. Mank, with Gary Oldman and Amanda Seyfried, God bless them. They made a wonderful movie, and congratulations on being nominated for an Oscar. I hated it. It was all
Oh,
I could do to keep my eyes open. It was just a sleeper for me. I am big confession here. I'm not a fan of black and white films,
mm.
and it was filmed in black and white, but also in the style of it's about the making of or it's about the writing of Citizen Kane, and so it was filmed in
Oh,
kind of
that's
like
right.
that
Okay,
style.
yeah.
And I knew nothing about it. And
Mank is what it's called?
Mank, because the guy's name was Herman Mankiewicz. That's who
Oh,
wrote
yes,
the
yes, yes.
screenplay
I've
with
read it with
Orson
his one.
Welles.
Right. Mhm.
And yeah, was not a fan. And God bless Amanda.
Yeah.
Good luck to you, girl. But I have no idea why she got nominated.
Mm.
And then Judas and the Black Messiah. It was also based on a true event that I knew nothing about. And it's like one of those movies where you watch this and you go, how did this happen? How did they do this? Like, um, so it was, I thought that was a good one. And then Promising Young Woman with Carey Mulligan. is about a young woman who, and I'll just tell you what's in the trailer. I won't give anything that's not in the trailer, but it's about a young
I'm
woman who
assuming
goes
she's
to,
very promising.
yeah, she goes to bars and pretends to be extremely inebriated in order to lure in young men who take advantage of girls who are extremely inebriated. And I won't tell you any more about what happens like once they discover that she's actually stone cold sober. But it was a very interesting film, a little bit
Mm.
suspenseful, and just the unfolding of why she's there and why she does what she does was interesting. Tomorrow we have Minari, which I am interested. I'm excited to see. I don't know anything about it. I try not to read anything about the nominated films, just so I don't know a whole lot before I go in. Um, but I know that it has, or at least I think. I know, say I know. I think it has the guy from Glenn from Walking Dead in it. I think.
This one I do know because David and Haley were talking about it. Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
it's
It's
supposed to be
Korean,
really
I
good.
believe, right?
What?
It's Korean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I may be totally wrong. It may not be him. Somebody told
No,
me
it
that he's in it.
sounds I believe that that is the case because that's
Okay.
why they were talking about it because they said,
Okay.
"You know who's in this is Glenn from Walking Dead." And I was like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
that's I
I'm
kind of
not a
like heard
Walking
mention
Dead
of that.
I'm not a Walking
Um
Dead person, but I do know enough to know who Glenn is." So,
Trial of the Chicago 7, which
right,
has
that
a
one's
packed
yeah.
cast,
Yeah, that one
and
was good.
Sasha Baron Cohen is nominated for Best Supporting Actor, which
Mhm.
had I heard that before I saw The Spy on Netflix, I would have been like, "What?" But I'm not a huge Sasha Baron Cohen
No, me neither.
fan. I'm not a huge Borat fan, but I will say in The Spy, he did an incredible job with acting. And he really, really impressed me. The Spy is a limited series on Netflix. It's based on a true story about an Israeli spy in the 1960s. If you haven't watched it, I definitely recommend it.
Okay.
And he really impressed me with his acting. So I'm not surprised now that he's nominated for Best Supporting for Trial of the Chicago 7, and then Nomadland with
Mm,
Frances McDormand, who I am a huge fan of. And that's the one that's like favored to win. You know how they do their odds of like which one
right.
they think is going to win based on other awards and based on other things that have happened. So Nomadland is the favorite, but we'll see.
Hmm.
So
I'm
I think I
surprised
missed one.
One Night in Miami. I'm surprised that that one wasn't, unless that one is gonna be I'm trying to think when that came out. That might be for next year. I don't
Oh,
know.
the one I missed is that
Is what?
drummer who loses his hearing and kind of has to like adjust to life in a world where sound was everything to him. Um,
But I'm sorry, I lost you for a moment. So I heard you say, "I know the one I missed," and then
oh, it's called The Sound of Metal,
oh, okay.
and it's about a
Gotcha.
heavy metal drummer
Mhm.
who
Yes.
loses his hearing and is trying to kind of adjust to life. And it stars Riz Ahmed, who I
Mm,
absolutely love. Like I think he's wonderful. He was
mm.
in an HBO series, like it was called like The Night Before or the night after or something. Did you see that?
I don't think I saw it, but I know I know of it. Yeah. I'm trying to remember whether I did see it. I don't think so, but I do know of it. So,
All
yeah.
right.
Hmm.
So anyway, I'll let you know. I'll give you an update and let you know after tomorrow what my vote is. Right now, my vote is The Father with Anthony
Mm.
Hopkins, but we'll see after tomorrow. And then I also try to watch the Best Actor, Best Actress I mean Best Actor, Best Actress nominees that are not included in Best Picture.
Right.
So we're going to be watching Ma Rainey's. I think it's Ma
Oh,
Rainey's Black
Black
Bottom
Bottom. Mhm.
because Chadwick Boseman is
Yes.
nominated and is the favored to win,
And I would
and
love that
Viola Davis is nominated.
for her.
And the other night we watched Pieces of a Woman with Vanessa
Yes.
Kirby. Really good, very
Yeah.
powerful
Yeah, that
film.
one. Yeah.
So, so yeah, I'm excited, and for that little tiny minority of you out there who still care about films and the Oscars and who wins, yay! It's Oscar season. Oscars is like my Super Bowl. So as you know, I only watch the Super Bowl for commercials. I know the Super Bowl is big for you, especially
I
depending on the teams that are playing, but this is
exactly.
my Super Bowl.
Definitely, there's a chance that I might see the Oscars next week because I will not be home, and so I will be in a place where I will not be in charge of the television.
Wow.
So if the people with whom I am with watch it, then I may see it, who knows? And that's
See,
the
and I
only way
don't
I would
watch
see
it
it,
with anyone. Well, I watch it with my husband.
right,
I have usually about 10 text conversations that are ongoing throughout the ceremony of people that I'm texting with.
right.
And for the last couple years in my ultraviolets reading group, we've done like a post where everybody's commenting. But I can't stand to have people here because if they talk during the acceptance speeches, it really gets on my nerves. So I don't have Oscar parties because of that. Like I don't want anybody talking during the acceptance speech.
Yeah, now that I think about it, the people who I'm with, we probably won't watch it because they're not big movie people, so they're television people,
Yeah.
so that probably would not happen, so
Yeah.
anyway,
Interesting.
yeah,
Another thing that I think has been interesting, the effect of the pandemic, I guess you would say, on movies, television,
right,
that branch of the entertainment industry, is that you're starting to see pandemic life creep into fiction. Like, for
right.
instance, on This Is Us, like everybody wore masks and they, had all these scenes like when Kevin's babies were born in the hospital, like everybody had to have the mask on and they, limited who could go in the hospital. And I know I've seen several romance novels come out that are based on pandemic fiction or romance in quarantine. What are your thoughts on that? What are your feelings about that?
Well, it's been interesting television-wise because when, we do watch a lot of TV and we still watch some network TV, and, everything just stopped, and, like, we had a few shows that went to mid-April last year, but then they just stopped. Um, so as things picked up this year, it was really interesting to watch which shows embraced it and which shows totally denied it and which shows kind of they didn't they didn't embrace it going in, but maybe 5 or 6 episodes, they did, and you can understand that because timing was weird, because if you stopped filming in March,
Right.
but you were in the middle of a storyline, then that storyline might have not been, conducive to adding this. NCIS New Orleans, for instance, very much embraced the pandemic. They talked about how it
Well, New
hit
Orleans was an epicenter there for a while, hotspot.
exactly, and because the um, medical examiner is a big part of that. How it hit her and how they were trying to deal with the terrible effects of not having enough space for all the bodies and just so many different things that were happening. So that was very much part of it. The regular NCIS, they did not, for the first 5 episodes of the season, they didn't even acknowledge it, and it was very interesting. My husband and I would be like, "Oh, okay, well, I guess it just it didn't happen to Washington D.C." But then about 5 episodes in, they did, and they it was a big way. It was like they started at one episode, and one of the main characters had lost his wife. That was referenced, that she had died of COVID. Which a lot of people were really upset about fan wise, because this show has a tendency to get rid of a lot of its female characters. Like, well, there goes another one. Um, Now, I'm a big Grey's Anatomy and Station 19 fan, and that has been interesting watching how they have dealt with it. Which, it started in September, and they picked up and they just ran with it. And really, even up to now, it's still all about COVID and what's happening and what's going on. And you can understand that because they're medical based shows.
Right. I do think the subject matter of the show matters. Like if you're doing something like NCIS or you're doing something
Mhm.
like Grey's Anatomy,
Right,
those shows kind of regularly reflect headlines and they
mhm,
regularly reflect things that are going on in real life. So I think it would be odd if they didn't cover it. I'm kind of torn about it in other cases. Like I will say I found it somewhat distracted. distracting in This Is Us.
Right.
It was like one episode there was nothing, and the next episode
Right.
everyone's masked up and they're quarantining, and there's
Yeah.
this. It was just kind of like,
Yeah.
okay, it felt like it was like this blatant, look, we're showing it, like, so
Yeah.
rather than it being something that naturally occurred in the story, it seemed like it was kind of forced. But I mean, not that COVID naturally occurred in any of our life stories, but
No.
um I don't know. So I'm torn. I don't think that I would seek out romance novels or fiction novels that were
Yeah.
specifically about COVID or quarantine. And I get that some people want to see real life reflected. I'm kind of more in the escape fiction kind of thing of like, I don't know that I
Yeah.
want to really read about
Well,
it. I read about it in the news, and I don't know that I want to read about it in my fiction.
having just, I'm in the middle of releases right now, and of course they're medical romance. So as I went to write this next trilogy, because the first trilogy in this series was written during the pandemic and was released during the pandemic, but I made a decision because the storyline had been um, set up well before the pandemic, and so I made a decision not to include it. But now, it really was a choice. As they're going into hospitals and different things are happening, I was finding myself going, oh, would they be allowed to do this? Would they be allowed? And I had to just finally say no. In this world, this maybe happened in 2018 and 2019,
Right.
not
Well, and
2020
the
and
thing is, like, people were saying, like, "Oh, you have to reflect the times that you're in or
right,
whatever." But I don't think that, if I read a novel in the beginning of the '70s or the late '60s, and it doesn't bring up Vietnam, or it doesn't bring like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I don't know if that was early '70s. I don't know
it
what the
was,
years were for
it was,
Vietnam.
it
I was a
was,
baby. But
it
anyway, what
was.
I'm saying is, I don't think that when I read novels, I look to, well, what was going on in the world when this novel was set, and is it reflected accurately in here? If it's about that, then yeah, I want
Right.
it to be accurate. But if not, I don't know.
I mean,
I
if
think
you're reading
fiction's fiction.
if you're reading a romance where somebody like it's military romance and they don't mention Vietnam, that's probably a problem. And
Right,
it's
right,
it's
because the
the
subject
late
matter, or if it's a hospital, if it's a medical
right,
romance and it was
exactly.
set in this year and
Right,
they didn't mention it, then
yeah, and
that's
yes,
not plausible. But I
I
feel like if you're setting it in a totally fictional kind of like, I feel like sometimes fiction runs in an alternate universe where, like,
right,
maybe it happened at the same time, but nothing that happened in the real world happened over here in this
right.
fiction world.
Well,
I
there's
don't know.
certain things like Nora Roberts wrote I mean, oh, this has probably been 25 or 30 years ago, maybe not quite that, but she wrote a series about a family who, sorry, my what's it called? It just popped on my, not Alexa, but my other person.
Siri.
Yes, and you know what it was? I said series. Yes,
Oh.
that's why she popped up. But it was about a family in Ireland,
Yeah, it
and or
wasn't that
they
long
were
ago.
no, they were it was the McGregors,
Yeah,
is what
year
it was.
1, The Chronicles, but
No,
it wasn't
year
no?
one is not it. No, 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 no.
'Cause they were
It
in Ireland.
Yeah, but she writes a lot of stories about Ireland. She writes a lot of stories about Ireland. The McGregors were quite a while ago. I still lived in New Jersey, so it's been at least 15 or 20 years. Um, and then maybe a year later, she wrote about their grown children. So, you have this, this set of people who are falling in love and getting married, and then the next year it was like a soap opera where little
Right.
Charlie was 2 years old, then all of a sudden he's 20 and dating. Your understanding of timelines and whatever is
You kinda
suspended.
suspend it
Mhm.
to make it
Yeah,
work.
you suspend disbelief. And,
Yeah,
for me, I try not to I'm very cognizant. I had an editor early on who said, "Watch how you, um, describe technology and certain things in your book, because
because it
if
dates it.
you can yeah, you can really put a parameter." And I just did a 4-book set for, another author who had recovered her rights and uh, you know, wanted the books up to date because they had been written in the late '90s. And, so when you do that, you're like, wow, a lot has changed, in
Well,
the
even,
last.
like, my editor, I I there was something that I said in a book where, she rolled her window down,
Oh, yeah, mhm.
and the editor was like, "We don't roll windows down anymore. Nobody
Yeah.
rolls their windows down. Like,
Well,
you've
that's why
left
I
the window
always like to
down
put
or."
people in vintage cars, because a vintage
Yeah,
car is gonna be the same. You're driving a 1965 Mustang,
it's not
you're
gonna
gonna
change.
roll that window down, that's right.
That's a good
Yeah,
idea. That's a good
yeah,
strategy.
yeah. But
Did you
it
read
is
your one?
I have it next to my bed to read, but a good friend of mine said, "Please do not read it until after the pandemic is over."
Yes. I would agree with that because I had a reader who told me this is my all-time favorite book and you absolutely have to read it. And this was maybe last May or June when we were like in full on,
Right,
like, what the hell's happening mode, and, it's about a virus,
yeah.
obviously that takes over, and I will tell you, I think had I read the book when it came out in 2017, I would have been like, "Oh my god, that's a really cool idea," but reading it in the midst of a global pandemic, I was like, "Oh, holy shit." So,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, no, no, that's yeah, no, as I said, it's next to my bed. I think I picked up a bunch of different, Nora Roberts books. I have a tendency to enjoy hers enough that if I'm out and I see if I'm at an antique store, a vintage bookstore or something, and I see, I'll be like, "Oh, yeah, I remember that, but I'm gonna get it
read
to
it
read again
again.
because why not?" Yeah.
Yeah, you can
So,
always reread a
yeah.
Nora.
So anytime that you can write something and not date it. I was actually thinking about this the other day because my Crystal Cove series, um, it's very specific that she was a teenager in the 80s because that is part of she in the story the main character in the posse is in her early 40s and she was a teenager in the 80s and
Right.
this now sets that book when it is because I mean, I don't think it would make anybody go, "Oh, I can't read this now. It's so outdated." It's not. There's not a whole lot of technology, but it is
Well, that's
true.
what with Crossing Paths and William and Catherine, and as I went back and told the story of how they met when they were teenagers, and
Yeah,
I said it with her being a teenager in the '80s because
yeah,
I knew that,
right.
and I
Mhm.
knew I didn't have to go research a whole lot of like what it was it like to be a teenager then. I was like, well, this will be safe. I'll write this, and then so yeah, same thing. It does date when that book takes place, but
You know
I
what's
think that's
very
fine.
interesting is that I have read a lot of different stories lately where they've talked about the grandmother or the grandfather or whatever, and they talk about the grandmother or the grandfather um, as though they lived through the Depression. And I'll think to myself, and
How
what part
old are
part of
they?
me right, part of me is like, "Well, that's right," because my grandparents did live through the Depression, but I'm 54 years old, so
Right,
if
right.
the heroine in this book is supposed to be in her mid-20s, there's a problem there because my children's grandparents were born, right in the middle of World War II, did not
Right.
live through the Depression, so and my children are the age that most contemporary romance that's not, uh advanced age woman. What is it called?
Seasoned
Uh,
romance,
seasoned romance. Thank
yeah,
you. I couldn't think of
mature
the word for it.
heroine.
Mature heroine, Henlet,
Oh, I
whatever.
hate that one. I hate that one.
Well, at any rate, my kids are around the ages that they would be. So whenever I'm writing a heroine, I try to think, okay, she's about the age of this child of mine. So her grandparents would have been getting married in the 60s or the 70s, and but we still have this mindset as a society that if you're a grandparent, you
Well, but I think it's a time thing because exactly like that meme said, that if we're talking about the '80s now, that's like someone in the '80s talking about the '40s.
right?
Like I think that I will always and forevermore think of oldies as being the
Oh,
'50s and
without a
early
doubt.
'60s
Yep.
music. Well,
Mhm.
oldies is the '80s and '90s at this point. You know what I mean? But like with me growing up, what the oldies were was '50s and '60s. So it's very possible that these authors who are aging this with them growing up, grandparents grew up in the
Right?
depression. So
Yeah,
you kind of like whatever you grew up with, that's kind of the time period that you're perpetually
definitely.
that's your
Yeah,
default.
that you're
That's your
stuck
default
in.
time period.
That's your default, yeah. It's just interesting. It's how our mindset works and,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I mean
so
1990 was like what, 20, 30 years ago? 30 years
30 years
ago.
ago. Yeah.
That's insane. That's
Yeah.
insane.
31 years ago, to be exact. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I know.
Wow.
It's
And it's
crazy.
funny because, like, having conversations with, my sons are both 22, and having conversations with them about vaccinations has been very interesting because my son is like, how can the government say that you have to get a vaccination for something before you can do stuff? He goes, I mean, I don't think they've ever done that before. And I was like, yeah, actually, yeah, to go to
Oh,
school, to do certain like, to travel certain places, like, I go, "Yeah, there actually yeah, that's been done." I'm like, "That's, kinda
sorry,
how
there's
they
a cat war.
eradicated polio
Smallpox.
and
Yeah,
smallpox," and
all
yeah,
those yeah.
and then he goes, "Yeah, but they're saying now that you have to get a booster every year." I mean, how crazy is that? How nuts would that be if you had to go get a shot every year? And I'm like, "Flu shot." Like,
Yeah, hello.
so it's
Well,
funny how,
and
like
we did have to get boosters.
yeah, but
Um,
it's funny how, like,
hold on,
if
hold on,
you're
hold on. We're
young
about to have an issue here. We're about to have an animal issue, so I'm just forestalling the
it's a
wars here.
live podcast,
It
guys.
is a live podcast, and
Whatever happens.
cats and dogs living together, and they're not happy with each
Pandemonium.
other. Yes, not pandemic, pandemonium. I'm gonna lift up a dog here so that he's out of. Look, he's making a special appearance.
Aw,
He doesn't
hi.
appear on just every podcast. Say hi.
Hi.
Yeah, and
For
usually
those of
they
you
can.
who are listening and not watching, there is an absolutely adorable little white dog.
There you are. Yeah, you're adorable. And there's a
So,
cat who's trying to come over and harass him because that's how we
because
roll
cats are
here.
not adorable.
He's also adorable.
You can say a lot of things about cats, but I don't think cats are adorable. I think they can be handsome and they can be majestic and they can be a lot of things, but I've never seen a cat that's adorable. Kittens, yes, but cats?
Okay.
I don't know.
Well,
I don't
at
know.
any rate, yes, our timing is very interesting in how we see things. Oh, and the vaccinations, yes. That's I mean, to me, boosters were what you always, really,
But I
even
think
for our basic
that's at
vaccines we got.
22, like, that's not something that's in his, that's
Yeah,
not something he's really experienced or thought about. I mean, he got vaccinations as a baby and as a small child, and he got boosters,
right.
but it's not something that, to him, all of this is so new, "Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, they're gonna make they want you to take a shot every year." Yeah, you take a flu shot every year, son. You get a nasal flu thing every year. "Oh, I guess I do." Yeah. So, but anyway. All right.
Oh, dear.
Well, I would love Tawdra doesn't really care, but I would love to hear from you if you have seen any of the Oscar-nominated movies, or
Tundra
if
does
you're
care.
watching the
Tundra just says
Oscars,
no. Yeah.
or what your opinion is on Best Picture. Maybe your opinion of Best Picture is something that has not been nominated and I really need to see it. So please comment on our Facebook page and Open Dialogue. Or you can email us at opendialogue1@gmail.com. We can both be found on social media, all the places. You can find Tawdra's books on tawdrakandle.com. It's funny because I normally ask you to say yours because I don't want to screw it up. And I was like, I'll just go ahead and say it. And I screwed it up. Tawdrakandle.com.
There you
And
go.
mine is violethowe.com. And
Great.
do you have anything else that you need to add?
I don't think so.
Tell us about you. I know you're in the midst of releasing,
I
but
am.
tell us the latest and greatest and the upcoming, just so that everybody knows.
The first two in the second trilogy in Diagnosis Love are released. That's
Oh, cool.
Intentional Grounding and Ineligible Receiver. And the third one comes out on this coming Tuesday, and it is Illegal Touching. And they are football and medical
I
romance.
was gonna say these sound like football
They
titles. Are
are.
you sure they're medical
They
romance?
are. Yeah, she's a
Okay.
doctor. He's a football player.
All right. There you
Sometimes
go.
it happens. Um, and also my holiday, my monthly
Yes.
holiday series that came out. The Easter one came out on April 7th.
So
Yep,
what
that one
is
came
May
out.
going to be?
May You Be Mine in a Small Town, and it's really fun.
Aw.
It's about a billionaire who is coming incognito to the small town of um, Georgia, the town in Georgia where Burton, Georgia.
Folks, when
It's
you
been a
write a
long
book a
way.
month, you just
Right,
can't
I know.
remember some of the
Burton, Georgia.
details.
Well, I have several small towns now. Burton, Georgia, and she comes because she's bored. She's a bored billionaire, and she's incognito, and she strikes up a relationship with a guy who's in a contest to try to get funding for his small business, and which is a brewery. And
Sounds
so,
like a match made in heaven.
yeah, so
A
we'll see what
bored
happens.
billionaire and a dude who
Yeah.
needs money.
Yeah, exactly. And then June is the prom one, which is also super fun. That one's kind of like a You Belong With Me, Taylor Swift, except
Yeah,
it's teachers. It's teachers. And July is going to be fun because that's a little bit more seasoned romance. That's a widow who hires a guy to fix her porch in time for the 4th of July party, and fireworks
nice,
ensue.
nice.
So yeah, that's what's going
I
on
have
with
to
me.
tell you, and I know you're writing fiction, but I have to tell you that I just think if I was a billionaire, I don't
Mhm.
know that I would get bored. I can think of a lot of stuff I could do
Yeah,
if I was a
but,
billionaire.
that's her whole thing, is that she makes the mistake of during an interview saying, they said, "What's the biggest problem that you have?" And she says, "Well, I'm bored." And her friends are appalled that she said this because they said, "That is like the most, you're not reading the temperature of the room. You're not, that's just
Right.
the most
Know your
offensive thing that
audience.
you can
Yeah.
say." Exactly.
Consider
And
the
so
climate.
she wants to, this is kind of her way of both beating boredom and of making it look good. So,
All
um,
right.
yeah, so we'll see. And what's going on in the
Oh
Bible?
my gosh. Okay. Well,
I had a dream that you had a book released.
yeah, and you were and in the dream you were
I
like
was
mad
really
that I didn't let
sad.
you read it
I
first.
know, I really was.
Okay. So I am in a little transition phase where I am putting down a book that I've been working on for a few months now because I just don't like it. And if I am not interested in the story, I don't see how anybody else would be either. So have made the very painful decision. It felt like a failure for a long time, and I've made the very painful decision to postpone that book.
Mhm.
And so I am now working on the second book in Cedar Creek Suspense.
Ooh,
Um,
awesome.
yes, so I'm excited about that. I actually had a conversation with a flight attendant yesterday about crash procedures.
Mhm.
So, and I also am working on, we just announced this week, the Soul Sisters at Cedar Mountain Lodge authors just announced this week that we are all going to be releasing another story set in that world. So these books will all release in November, and they will take place
Oh,
anywhere from a year to 3 years after the original series that was released last year. So I'm excited to revisit Maddie and her mom Claire, who everybody loves, and kind of explore that. And I'm also I think I told you before that I was working on a vampire series, and I actually
yes.
have been doing a lot of research.
Uh-oh. Okay. Well, we just lost Violet, and I'm not really sure why we did. But I know that she is saying that she's been doing a lot of research on her vampire book, and I'm very excited about it because I have heard bits and pieces of the storyline, and I can't wait for her to release it. So, and she will maybe elaborate a little bit about that when we release this. So, for anybody who's listening to this on podcast, she just vanished. Perhaps the vampires did not want her spilling the beans, so to speak. So I'm going to say that please follow us. Please hit subscribe either on YouTube, if you're watching us on YouTube, or on your podcast presenter of choice. You can follow us on Facebook, an open dialogue, and you can email us at an opendialogue1@gmail.com. You can find us on social media, and we're looking forward to seeing you next month. So thank you so much for listening. Keep in touch, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.